Hi there, and welcome to Life with Laila and the first episode of this weaning mini-series, Wean Without Worrying. A quick disclaimer, I'm not a doctor or a nutritionist. I'm a mum who has been through weaning twice with my daughters Scarlett and Ruby, and I'm about to start weaning again with my 6-month-old son Jacob, who you can probably see on the bed right behind me. I'm not being very quiet. In this video, I will talk about the types of weaning, how to tell if your baby is ready to start weaning, some do's and don'ts, different equipment that you might like to get hold of, as well as safety aspects such as choking and how to look for allergies. For my husband and I, food is a huge part of our day, and we love nothing more than congregating over a good meal to talk to each other. So I was really keen to start weaning and have our children be a part of that. I wanted to be able to take our kids to restaurants and parties and know that they'll try new foods and be able to enjoy a meal without any drama. By doing my research and putting effort into weaning our children, they have a great attitude towards eating. Even if certain foods go in and out of fashion as the days go by. I hope this weaning series will do the same for you and your baby. So I guess the first question to ask is, how do you know when your baby is ready to start weaning? The World Health Organization recommends that weaning begins at 6 months of age to complement the milk feeds. The reason for this is that continuing to feed your baby milk alone will no longer provide sufficient nutrients for growth and development. Infants need to be able to sit up along the middle of their body in order to practice safe eating. They also need the coordination to lift their hand to their mouth whilst opening their mouth to receive food. I'll talk about the different approaches to weaning shortly. Before that, another way to tell whether your baby is ready really does depend on how you intend to feed them. In order for this to make sense, let me briefly explain how babies learn to eat. So when a baby drinks milk, it comes out of the teat or the nipple and is delivered straight to the back of the mouth, where it triggers the swallow reflex and allows the baby to drink the milk. When food is introduced, it is delivered to the front of the mouth. Therefore, the baby has to try and use their tongue to work it towards the back of the mouth. So if a baby is fed pureé, it's not as easy as drinking milk from a teat, but it's quite an easy process to move food to the back of the throat. For this reason, there are some situations where babies may be weaned from 4 months using purees. If the baby is fed more solid food, this requires chewing and breaking down of the food. It's a bit more of a complicated process and requires the tongue and the jaw to work harder. It is not recommended to give solid chunks of food to babies under the age of 6 months because they just haven't developed enough to process it. They don't have the strength or stamina to chew it, so end up swallowing it whole, which is obviously a risk for choking. So whilst most infants start reaching for food between the ages of 4 to 7 months, it's not until they're 8 months that they really start to need the nutrients and will start taking in a lot more of that food and eating it. So let's start with purees. So the theory behind starting with purees is to have the baby build the skills to process the smooth food from the front of the mouth to the back until the teeth erupt and they become physiologically more developed to process and chew more solid food. This happens around 8 months. So babies will start with very smooth puree and build to more lumpy puree and then eventually to solid food around 8-9 months. So this is where the baby is given gummable, safe-sized finger foods. The amount of food actually ingested varies, but this approach is more about exploration and play in the beginning. But the theory is that the baby will work out what to do with the food for themselves and over time eat more and more as they develop. So the ratio of solid food to purees is completely up to you. It depends what you feel comfortable with, what time you have to prepare food, what your family's lifestyle is, what your approach to feeding is, as a family. Weaning setups come in a variety of shapes and sizes, as you can see. Milk intake needs to stay the same until around about 9 months. This is usually around the time that baby will want a little bit less milk and start to eat a little bit more real food. Be led by baby on this. Some babies are just hungry, but you may find that you will start to reduce their milk intake from around about 9 months. At this point, I would like to explain about baby-led weaning, which is probably a phrase that you've heard of quite a lot. Baby-led weaning was named and advocated by Jill Rapley in 2008. The theory behind it is that the parent can control what the baby eats, but the baby controls absolutely everything else. So they control how they eat it, they control how much they eat, how long it takes to eat, they feed themselves completely. The parent doesn't help hardly at all. They may feed softer foods on a spoon, but they have to preload the spoon and place it in front of the baby. It's not something that they would ever give the baby directly. So that is really the only time that the parent helps. Obviously the parent is always there watching, making sure that it's safe, but baby-led weaning can't really be mixed or matched with any other types of traditional weaning. So if this approach appeals to you, I've left a link to a really good resource in the description box, so go and take a look at that. For the sake of this video and the rest of the weaning series, I'm going to focus more on the traditional types of weaning, such as purees and solid food, and give you the freedom to choose your own way and mix and match as you see fit. Now, you don't have to spend vast amounts of money on equipment to feed your baby. However, there are some essentials that you will want to get hold of. There is a chair for most home setups and portable options for when you're out and about. The main thing is that your baby can sit upright and is safe and secure. Crockery and cutlery come in all shapes and sizes and price points. We've collected a range over the years, mostly from supermarkets, but this time I decided to buy these gorgeous plates and bowls from Bamboo Bamboo. The only problem I ever had with the other crockery was the fact that it would slide around and get launched occasionally, but these stick like glue and are so beautiful. I think we have collected every cup design ever invented over the past few years. Some worked well and others were rubbish, so I'm afraid it's trial and error a bit. I'm going to try and wean Jacob straight onto an open cup this time and see how that goes. The main types of bib are smock style coveralls or the plastic scoop bibs that collect dropped food. This time we are using these amazing bibs from Bibado that not only keep the baby clean from neck to toe but will fit onto any chair, so they're really great for when you're away from home. Now, weaning is a messy business and we find cloth wipes an absolute lifesaver. Obviously they're better for the environment than wet wipes, but they genuinely do a better job of cleaning up. We bought these bamboo wipes from Cheeky Wipes, but you could get some cheap flannels or you could make your own wipes. Protecting your floor from flying food is not a bad idea, especially if you have carpet. You can buy splash mats or use an old bed sheet or some tarpaulin. When we first started weaning, I used to think that Scarlett was a really clean baby until I noticed our dog Milo getting a little bit fat. Turns out he's quite an effective floor cleaner, although he's banned from mealtimes now. There are loads of helpful weaning resources out there. I just wanted to show you one that I used. The Ella's Kitchen books are exhausted parent proof, and this is the first foods book, the purple one. It's got guidance and simple recipe ideas for all weaning approaches. It also has a fun pull-out weaning planner for those that like to get a bit organised. So once you've decided what approach to take to feed your baby, there are a few do's and don'ts to consider. Start with 1 meal a day and increase this slowly so that by the time they're 8-9 months, they're having around 3 meals a day. Introduce new foods slowly so that the body gets a chance to adapt, especially the digestive system, and you can keep an eye out for allergies. Try to introduce 1 food a day for a couple of days at a time. Offer your baby water at intervals during their meal to help with digestion. They've never eaten food before, so constipation is a common symptom during the early days of weaning. Check the temperature of food with your lips. I always go with tepid to warm just to be on the safe side. Do try herbs and spices in your baby's food, but do so in tiny increments. Your baby is not going to approve of a vindaloo. If you want to know a little bit more about how to prepare foods for your baby, whether that's purees or solid food, check out episodes 2 and 3 of this weaning series where I will show you just that. So there's a list of foods that you should avoid giving your baby before a certain age. The first is honey. Don't feed honey to your baby until they are a year old, otherwise they are at high risk of infant botulism, which is a very serious disease. Runny eggs. So the advice in the UK has changed recently. If you buy eggs with the Red Lion brand on the front, you can feed them undercooked. If they don't, you must cook eggs fully through, and if you are from other countries, you need to check your advice on that. The reason being that they can cause salmonella. Red Lion brand eggs have been vaccinated against salmonella, so they're safe to eat. Cow's milk should be avoided until they're a year old. In cooking, it's absolutely fine, so you can use little bits in cooking, but don't give it as a drink. Kind of goes without saying, but tea, coffee, and soft drinks should be avoided for as long as possible. Tea and coffee, obviously, because of the caffeine content. Soft drinks can be acidic, so they can damage the teeth, but also they will contain sugar or sweeteners, which is something that you just don't want to be adding to your baby's diet for as long as possible. Whole nuts until around about 5 years old, that's quite late, just because they're a choking risk. You can give ground nuts, but avoid whole nuts until a bit later on. Low fat or diet foods. These foods tend to be higher in sugar, and also your baby needs full fat until they're at least 2 years old. Avoid giving your baby extra salt or sugar in any of their foods. The reason for this is that they don't need it. They'll develop a taste for it, which could lead to unhealthy eating habits later on in life. If you want to sweeten something, try to use natural sweeteners like mashed banana. There are a couple of safety aspects of weaning that you need to understand to make sure that you're feeding your baby safely. One of the main worries is choking. Before I talk about choking, I'd like to explain a little bit about gagging, which is actually confused with choking sometimes. Gagging is a common and natural part of your baby learning to eat. It's a process that almost all babies will go through. So in order for you to not turn into a nervous wreck, I'd like to explain the difference between gagging and choking so that you know which is the one that you need to worry about. Gagging is the body's way of preventing choking by pushing the food from the back of the throat to the front. Because your baby's eating food for the first time, they're likely to gag quite a lot for the first few months. But by around 8 months, they've usually got the handle of it and can eat without gagging too often. When a baby is gagging, they're unlikely to be distressed by this. They will still be able to breathe, and usually after it's happened, they'll continue eating as if nothing's happened. I've included this video from the Baby Centre website, which clearly shows a baby gagging. I've also put the link in the description box so that you can watch it again or look at further resources from the Baby Centre website, which is quite helpful. If your baby gags, as scary as it feels, it's important that you just sit back and let their body do its job. As long as they're able to breathe, they might just be retching, they won't be in any distress. One thing that you can do is ensure that the baby's seat is upright. The gag reflex does not work as well if they're leaning backwards. So what we tend to do is pop a little blanket behind Jacob's lower back so that he can sit forward and upright for the length of time that a meal takes. Now, choking is noticeably different from gagging. At this point, the airways are blocked, the baby can't breathe, and it's a medical emergency, so you need to get help as soon as possible. I've included some resources in the description box, and I urge you to go and have a look at those so that you know what to do if your baby is struggling with something blocking their airways. Try not to worry or obsess about your baby choking. It really doesn't happen very often. What you can do is make sure that you're always preparing food for the right stage of your baby's development, making sure that you never leave your child alone when they're eating, and also by making sure that you read up on what to do if anything does go wrong. So next, let's talk about allergies. Foods that can cause allergies include cow's milk, eggs, foods containing gluten, including wheat, barley and rye, nuts and peanuts, seeds, soya, shellfish. Now, allergies can vary in severity and they can turn up in one area of the body or all over the body. So it's definitely worth reading up about what allergic reactions can look like, what to do if you think your child is having one, especially if you have a history of allergies in your family. Briefly, if your child is having a mild or moderate allergic reaction, it can look a little bit like they've got hay fever, so they could have red, itchy eyes, they could just be sneezing or coughing or wheezing, they may or may not have a rash on their body. You need to seek medical advice at this point, but don't give your baby antihistamines unless they are 1 year old or over, or unless it's on a prescription. A more severe reaction can stop your baby from breathing, so it's really important that you treat this as a medical emergency and get help straight away. I've left some links to resources in the description box to explain what to do and what to look for with a severe allergic reaction. Not all reactions to food are because of allergies. Many children react to certain foods because they irritate the skin around the mouth. These foods include tomatoes, citrus fruits, and strawberries. I hope this video has given you the information that you need to understand what weaning is and how you can go about it. There's quite a lot to remember, so if for any reason you want to go back to a particular point in the video, I have listed the timestamps in the description box below. I know how valuable your time is as a parent and how soon you can be invaded by little ones. The rest of this weaning series is designed to show you how I personally prepare foods for weaning. The next episode I'll be showing you how to prepare purees, and in episode 3 I'll be showing you how to prepare more solid food for your little one. In future videos I'll be opening up the channel to other parents and experts to come in and talk about their experiences of weaning, the highs and the lows, any issues that they've come across and how they dealt with them, and where you can go if you're struggling and need some guidance or support. We'll be sharing recipes and ideas, and I'll be taking my own advice and weaning Jacob and sharing that journey with you. I'd love to have you join us, so please subscribe to Life with Laila, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for watching. Bye!